Hey guys, this is Tressa with Gallup Coaching, and we want to take you from barrier to breakthrough. Welcome to our YouTube channel. This video is part of a series of live videos that we did called Count the Cost. In this series, we explore really practical ways to prepare for those big financial commitments that most of us will face. Things like buying a car, leasing an apartment, adopting a pet, and even things like doing your own taxes, investing your money, and setting up a budget. So if you are a young adult just getting started on your financial journey, or if you just haven't learned how to adult yet with your money, then this series offers a lot of tips, tricks, and advice to help you count the cost. Have you ever asked yourself the question, how much of my monthly income should I be spending on food or entertainment? In today's video, we're going to give you guys some really practical budget guidelines, different numbers and percentages that are going to give you a framework to work within when you're planning how to spend your hard-earned money. So let's get started. Hey guys. Tressa here, checking in with you all today, and we are doing a pretty special Count the Cost training today. And this training is all about the categories in your budget. So, got my nerd glasses today, got my calculator, of course, with a unicorn theme. So I'm ready to do some math. Are you ready to do some math with me? No? Okay, I don't blame you. So I want you guys to know that budgeting does not have to be a chore. It does not have to be a frustrating thing that you just hate to do, that you dread, that you put off. I am a self-proclaimed budgeting nerd. I really love working on my budget and helping other people set up a custom budget that works for them and work through it. But I wasn't always that way. And I'll be honest with you guys, math was my worst subject in school. I absolutely hated it. I didn't think I was any good at it. And I probably skipped a lot of those classes, truth be told. Which is why I probably didn't graduate high school on time. But I want you guys to know that really anybody can do a simple budget and figure this stuff out. And if y'all join us live or watch us on the replay, we want to know, what is the hardest thing for you about budgeting? Is it just getting started in the first place? Is it figuring out where all of your money needs to go? Is it sticking to a budget, making a plan that actually works and is realistic for you? Well, we want to know what you guys struggle with on your budget, so put that down in the comments below, and we'd love to hear from you. But today we're going to give you guys some really simple guidelines when you are first starting a budget or reworking one that maybe hasn't been working well for you. And especially if you are a young adult and just getting started with managing an income and your money, then I think this is really going to help you out. And these guidelines are nothing new. They are not original to me. You can actually do all sorts of internet searches and find different guidelines and percentages for different categories in your budget. Most of these come from Dave Ramsey's plan and his recommendations, because we have used those personally and found that in most cases they work well for most people. And sometimes we will tweak them a little bit here and there. But I will cite any sources that these guidelines come from down in the comments so that you can check those out as well. But let's just jump right in. And if you are at a place where you can grab a pen and paper and maybe a calculator and write these numbers down along with me, then you can really get a good idea of what they look like. Hey Kim, nice to see you. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them up there. We're going to be answering questions about budgeting today and talking about the different percentage guidelines for items in your budget. So we are going to start with just some easy round numbers to use as an example. We're going to base these percentages on a yearly gross income of $60,000 and a monthly income of $4,000. So that math doesn't exactly work perfectly, but we're trying to use a round number as an example so you can see how these percentages, these general guidelines work. And so we recommend that your housing cost, so this is going to be the largest chunk usually of your budget, the largest percentage. So we want to start with housing. So this would be your rent payment or your mortgage payment, including anything that goes along with your mortgage payment like PMI or property taxes. So that amount should not be, in our opinion, more than 25% of your gross income. So if your if your net monthly income is $4,000, then your gross is going to be close to $5,000. So 25% of that gross income, which is the pay that you get before taxes come out, that's going to be $1,250. So that is your top number. If that is your income, that's your top number that you want your mortgage or your rent payment to be. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. So we're looking at an amount 25% or less. And the reason why that is important is because if you get over that 25% amount, it's really going to take a huge bite out of other things in your budget. You're going to have to sacrifice some things. You might end up being house poor if your mortgage is too high, and can really just cause you a lot of trouble if an unexpected emergency happens, which does tend to happen in our lives. So some people will say 30% or less on housing costs, but we don't recommend any more than 25%. And even then, sometimes that is pushing it, and y'all are going to see that in our example. So, okay, that's housing. Let's talk about a car payment. First of all, let's talk about the total cost of a car, because there is a general guideline for that as well. We don't recommend that you have any more money invested in vehicles, anything with wheels that goes down in value, as Dave Ramsey says. We don't recommend that you have any more into those than 50% of your gross income. So if you make $60,000 and you're a single person, that's your gross pay, then 50% of that would be $30,000. So if you're looking to buy a new vehicle, that's a good guideline on how much total should this vehicle cost. And you should be looking at vehicles under $30,000, because those do go down in value. And again, if you get a higher a vehicle that costs more than that and your payment is going to be really high, it's going to make your budget go out of balance. So that's what we recommend, no more than 50%. So in this case, if we bought a $30,000 vehicle, which is at the very high end of what is recommended, then our car payment is going to be, depending on your credit, around $500 a month, if you have good credit. And we're going to go back to that vehicle and talk about why it's a good idea to not have a car payment and what it can do for you if you don't. But most people do. So we've got 25% of our gross income in housing. We've got a $500 a month car payment. Let's see, which is about 13% of our monthly take-home pay. Let's talk about savings and investments. We do recommend that if you're not repaying any debt, that you have 10 to 15% of your income going toward investing. And that's for retirement, for the future. And maybe another 5% just in savings if you need to build up an emergency fund that you haven't done yet. Let's talk about giving and generosity. This is something that we do recommend that you do. Unless you have a ton of debt and you're really struggling, we recommend that you set aside 5 to 10% of your income for giving. And there's a few reasons why we want to do that. If you are a Christian and you believe in tithing to the church, then that is 10% of your income. And here I've got it listed as 10% of your net income, but most people actually give 10% of their gross income. So they'll take 10% off the top of their pay before taxes are even paid and give that back to the church or ministry where they get fed, where they that they want to support because they are giving to them and giving to their community. If you're not a Christian or if you don't go to a church, then we'd recommend just finding a foundation or charity or group that has values that align with yours, something that you believe strongly in, something that you want to support. And by doing that, you not only help other people, but you really do change yourself. You really do grow a lot of strength from that, a lot of grace, and it just changes your heart, guys. It makes you a better person. It grows this character that is super attractive and actually ends up attracting money, believe it or not, but it does. All right, so there are some general guidelines for your car payment, your car in total, your housing cost, your savings and investments, your charitable giving, your generosity. Then we want to make sure we have some money for fun, right? We want to have money set aside for entertainment, some spending money. And we recommend putting aside 10 to 15% just for that. And unless you have, again, a huge amount of debt to pay off, that's not going to make that possible. Or if you really want to focus on that first, which is great, it's awesome because you're going to have more in that category later if you do that. Then yeah, 10 to 15% is a good guideline. So those three things, the giving and the investing and the spending, we would recommend that those be at the very top of your budget and that those would come out first if you are in a good place financially. If you're not, if you have debt to pay, if you've gotten behind or your budget does not balance already, then that's going to change things. But if you're in a pretty good place, we would recommend putting those at the top. and making those 3 a priority for you. And so let's look at what we have here now. If you've been writing down any numbers, and if you check out our spreadsheet that we're going to put down in the comments, you'll see that we've already spent 83% of our income. That's a lot, guys. So that's just housing, saving and investing, giving a small amount, and spending, fun and entertainment. So, and our car, of course. So we still have groceries to buy, fuel for the car, utilities to pay, and any other bills that we have, right? So 17% probably isn't going to cover that. In our $4,000 example, monthly example here, that's only $680. And I mean, if you eat peanut butter sandwiches every day, that might work, but it's going to be tight, right? And we don't want it to be. So even if we take away just that $500 car payment, and that frees up another 13% of our income, there is so much that we can do with that. We can use maybe half of that and add it into our groceries and fuel and other bills category, and that's going to give us a good amount there for a single person. Also, if we don't do that, if we still have that $500 car payment, that's really going to eat into our spending, our fun and entertainment category. So as you can see in this example, we do have a zero-based budget, which means we've made a plan for all of our money, from our income to our expenses. We've planned for all of it to go somewhere so that we have nothing left. We've spent all of it. So as you can see in this example, though, the amounts budgeted for food, fuel, and utilities are really tight and probably unrealistic for most people. And there is nothing left for other expenses, no margin or extra room in the budget at all. So this would not be a realistic budget. So let's take a look at an example of a budget with some more realistic numbers. We're going to adjust our savings to 10%, which would be $400. We're going to keep our giving the same. We will take our fun and entertainment budget down just a little bit to $400 a month. And we're going to adjust our housing slightly also to be 25% of our net or take-home pay, which would be right at $1,000 a month. And then the car payment, we're going to make a big change here. Instead of a $30,000 car, we're going to buy a $20,000 car. And we may end up needing to pay this car out a little longer, over a longer period of time. But that'll make that payment $360 a month. And then we can actually increase our grocery budget and our food budget so that we don't have to eat peanut butter sandwiches every day. And then we can adjust our fuel budget so that we can actually drive our new car a little more and actually afford to pay our utilities. We'll increase those. And remember, these are just examples. No one's budget is going to look exactly like this, but this can help give you ideas
for how to plan your money. And in this example, we will actually also have 6% of our income, or $240 left over for other things. And oh, I messed up here. This should be 500 instead of 400. So as you can see, we still have a zero-based budget. We have a plan for all of our money, which is what we want, but the numbers are more realistic for this income. And you can see that just by adjusting the housing down slightly, the car payment, and our investing, we have freed up $540 of our income to shift into other categories, and that's all it took to make it a more realistic budget. And we have this all important margin, which is so vital to having a healthy budget. And I wanted to show you guys one more thing. If we eliminate this car payment entirely, then this is gonna look really cool. So what we can do then is we can increase our fun and entertainment budget a little bit. Then we can also buy some more groceries, maybe even afford to feed our pet if we have one. We can increase our margin budget a little bit. And we can add us a new category in here. So now, instead of paying someone else a car payment, when we don't have that in our budget, we can actually start saving for our next car. And this is how we get to the point where we are financing our own car. We're not paying any interest to a bank or any other financing company. We are actually saving that money and even earning interest on it in a money market account, or we can invest that money while we're waiting to buy our next car. So we can put an amount in there every month, and that's a real exciting thing, guys, to get to that point. So we still have margin, we still have realistic numbers in the rest of our budget, but guys, we are going on an uphill ride here, and we still have our zero-based budget.
I really want to recommend to you guys that you make a plan today to self-finance your next car. And this is something that we're really big on here at Gallup, is not having a car payment. And of course, no debt at all is wonderful, but many of us get to the point where we can pay off our credit cards and maybe some other debts, but we still have a car payment every month. And in this example here, where we have a $30,000 car and a $500 a month car payment, this person whose example we're working on here has really good credit, and they're paying another $4,000 in interest on that car. So that car is actually costing them $34,000. But this other person may not have such a good credit score, and if it's under 600, they could be paying around $12,000 in interest on that car for a 6-year loan. So they're paying $42,000 for that car. And that $500 a month that's eating a big chunk out of their budget is making their budget super tight here. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. And we are going to offer some more trainings in the future on how to start today to make that plan to self-finance your next car, so that you do not have a loan, you are not paying interest, And by the time you're ready for that next car, you have all of the cash saved up to pay for it. And if that just sounds impossible or unbelievable because nobody does that, I'm telling you, it's possible. We've done it, we've seen it happen with other people. It's totally possible. And you don't have to make as many sacrifices as you think to get there. So guys, there are some general guidelines for you. We did have someone ask the question, how much should I be spending on fun and entertainment and food and different things like that? You want to take care of your bills. You can do a little bit of easy math to figure out how much percentage-wise you're spending on things like housing and your car payment. So if you know how much you get paid every month, what you're taking home, you can divide that by your payment and you'll know how much percentage that is of your monthly pay. But we do recommend the 5 to 10% giving, the 10 to 15% investing. You want to start that now. The sooner the better, guys. And the 10 to 15% for spending and fun. And of course you can do more than that if your budget allows. But we do want you to have some fun no matter where your budget is at. Find ways to celebrate. And I had to get real creative about that when we were paying off all that debt that we had. So now that category is one of the largest in our budget because we don't pay anybody anything except for our utilities and our insurance. So we don't pay the banks anything, we don't give them any extra interest, none of that. So it's a really awesome place to be, and we want to help you guys get there as well. So I hope that answers some of your questions about how much of my money should be going to what things in my budget. We've covered just a few here, and there are a lot more. If you have specific questions about your budget, we'd love for you to post them here. Send us a DM and we'll answer your questions. We just want to help people. We want people to get to a better place in their financial life more quickly. It took us a long time. It took us 20 years, and we don't want it to take that long for anyone else. I wouldn't recommend it. So guys, we thank you for joining in and watching. And warriors, I just want you to know that you've got it in you to do this. You can budget, you can figure math out. Use a spreadsheet. If you don't have basic spreadsheet skills, I'd recommend watching a YouTube class on that, because it does all the math for you. It makes it so easy to budget on a spreadsheet. Or you can get out your pen and paper and your calculator and do it old school if you like paper better. But just start, just do something today. And if you just start with these general guidelines and your income, if you know what your income is, if you know what your expenses are, we call that an ugly budget. It's just where you just start and write something down. If you have a starting point, you can improve from there. And by this time next year, you're gonna look at that budget, and if you keep at it, and it's gonna look nothing like what you started today, and you're gonna be so proud of yourself. And guys, we're really proud of you too. And we thank you for joining in, and we will see you guys next week. Bye.